set.
Hello, my name is Matt Harris.
And I'm Cody Dennis.
And I'm here to talk about the harm of fossil fuels.
And I'm going to talk about the positive effects that they have on society. Fossil fuel usage, has, specifically coal, has been used since around 1000 BCE. First used by the Chinese. This picture here is actually showing a mine that is taking place in 300 BCE, which is when it was first used to heat their furnaces so they could make tools for farming and other uses. It wasn't widely used though until the Industrial Revolution and into the current day, and it further pushed the United States and other countries into an age of technology.
Now, while the rise of fossil fuels has been occurring in the U.S., it's also caused another problem, which is a chemical called carbon dioxide to be released into the air. In a study by Alfred Sumner, the true magnitude of these effects was realized because the concentration of CO2 has doubled since it began to rise in 1860. This change has affected not only the weather, which you may have heard of, or not only the temperature, which you may have heard of, global warming, but the weather as well. These effects can be seen in Sumner's research with us having increased temperatures since the year 2000. And at the rate we're going, it is estimated that by the end of the century, the lower half of the U.S. will be experiencing 100 or more days of over 95 degree temperatures. Now, while that may be amusing to have heightened temperatures, it's actually very lethal for us as humans, because with temperatures that high, sweat cannot evaporate from our skin, causing us to not be able to regulate our body temperature, causing us to go into a heat stroke and die. Now, another effect that the weather that I spoke about earlier that is affected by the CO2 can bring it more flooding and droughts, causing prolonged reduction in food production and causing the land to be more wet and sticky, which is the prime habitat for such bugs as mosquitoes, which bring in various viruses and diseases.
One of the first positives that I'm going to talk about for the use of fossil fuels is the amount of jobs that it brings. There's millions of jobs around the world. Just in the United States, millions of people rely on the mining to support their families and themselves. The transportation of this raw fuel, the coal and even the petroleum, once it's pulled from the earth, that brings many jobs, and then the distribution of it, even gas stations are a direct supply of fossil fuels. Even personal jobs through crops, they're dependent on fossil fuels for larger quantities of their yield. In a study done by Pryor et al. In South Africa, it was shown that sugar cane, which is a major cash crop, is harvested by many of the people living there for their direct source of income for them and their family. This screen, you can see transportation, 25% is a fossil fuel and 11% is renewable, or 24% is renewable. 25% of fossil fuel is used for transportation. This goes to transportation that results straight from fossil fuels, specifically petroleum and gas, diesel, and other fuel sources. This created cross-country travel and commerce. The interstate system uses many trucks that rely straight off of diesel fuel to move goods across the country. And even in the 1800s, coal was used in steam locomotives to get people across the country. The movement of goods across the world is also a direct result of fossil fuels, such as like jet fuel and global trade and shipping freighters. This goes to my next point with agriculture. Everything in the United States, farmers depend on fossil fuels to harvest their crops, as well as plant them, ship them, process them, just to get them to market. It all depends on fossil fuels. And this shows the maize production by country. Italy is at the top, and the United States is fourth. And this is in tons per hectare.
Now, while these people that depend on the oil production for jobs are, well, depending on it, they are also the prime victims of the dangers of collecting this oil, which is, of course, oil spills. This can be seen in a very recent one, which you may have heard of, Deepwater Horizon, when the oil spill caused a lot of water to be polluted and kill and injure many workers. But there's another effect that is less talked about, and that is the psychological effect that it has on people. In a study by Wrong and Gaston, the psychological effects of the oil spill were looked at to determine if there was a connection between them and the oil spill. In the study, they looked at the factors of how it affected them financially, smelling the oil, and any physical contact with it. They concluded in their study that about 28% of the tested subjects showed depressive symptoms, 18% showed severe mental health problems, and another 19% showed moderate mental health. This is dangerous because with people using fossil fuels more and more, it's causing us to find more and more and have more oil rigs, causing a better possibility for oil spills.
Although Matt stated some downfalls of the use of fossil fuels, there are millions of people that depend on them just to survive. In a study done by Dosunmu in 2016 on the Imo River in Nigeria, they looked at the shrimp that the people there used for their food source and to sell to make money to support themselves. They looked at the amount of carcinogenic polycystic aromatic hydrocarbons in the water that were put into these shrimp by the use of fossil fuels, and it was determined that the amount wasn't high enough to directly damage the people eating them, but it's still there, and there's a slight chance that it could be harmful. And these polycystic aromatic hydrocarbons contain hundreds of chemicals that result from the incomplete burning of coal, oil, and gas. Also in Malaysia, in a study done by Soyami in 2017, it was found that millions of people throughout the country depend on the burning of coal and oil just to heat their homes and survive at night. And it was determined this because they put sanctions on how much carbon that they were allowed to put out. So this is basically going with the moral obligations of us against saving the world or saving lives. There are some alternatives that can be used instead of fossil fuels, but they have their downfalls. Hydroelectric power, it provides a lot of electricity for the country, but the land use that it destroys to native reservoirs can destroy animal habitat as well as humans' property. Solar power, there's a high cost just to create these solar powers and then to actually install them, and then they require maintenance, and the payout is around 10 years, so you won't see a reduction in costs or anything for another 10 years, and most people don't want that. They want something immediately. Nuclear power, it is waste-free, it's pollution-free, but the disposal of the spent fuel rods has to be done in a correct manner, or else there could be catastrophic effects on the environment. And wind power costs a lot of money just to put up the windmills, and lots of areas needed, and the specific area that has a lot of wind is where the only place these things can go. And then the cost for maintenance.
of fossil fuels is the air pollution. It's a direct effect on people just by breathing it in. This must be taken into consideration because of all the extra particles and toxins released into the air, such as CO2. Previous research has shown that globally it is estimated that about 3 million people die each year due to air pollution, which can be seen in my table up here. This makes air pollution one of the largest environmental health risks. One of these health concerns was looked at by a study to see if inhaling enough of these gases could cause a certain type of heart disease. This heart disease that they looked at was called ischemic heart disease. This is when there is not enough blood going to the heart, resulting in a heart attack. In their study, they found that there was a connection between air pollution and this ischemic heart disease. That the people that were in a serious health hazard were in the Midwest and a lot of the East Coast, which you can see on the graph here. Another study another huge population that could be hit that may or may not be thought of very much are the children. A study was done to determine the effects burning fossil fuels has on these children. The gases have the ability to inflict terrible health problems on developing fetuses and young children. The study found that the amount of air pollution that they were taking in was connected to the diseases that they were being diagnosed with, such as asthma, cancer, and many others. This is because infants are more susceptible to toxins and the air particles that are released from burning fossil fuels than we are as adults. And so in conclusion, while fossil fuels may help a lot of people, there's no doubt that it harms a lot of them as well.
And then my conclusion will basically point out that fossil fuels are needed. We currently don't have the technology to use these alternatives wide scale. We don't have the money or the manpower to make these things exist. So it's shown here that the United States has 28% of world coal resources. So if we have it, we're going to continue to use it. And this graph here shows the energy consumption in the United States from 1776 to 2015. And it can be shown that petroleum, natural gas, and coal are at the top, and coal has actually declined. And then this one is projected into 2040, and it shows that petroleum and natural gas are still climbing, but coal will seem to